OBR Straight Talk, Episode 13, Fool's Gold.
Welcome back, everybody, to Episode 13 of OBR Straight Talk. We apologize for being gone so long. The damn holidays got in the way. Then I got hit with the plague, which was keeping me away from society. I don't like to be like in the house. I don't like to be hidden away from everything, Scott. So me not being able to do anything for 10 days, especially not recording the OBR Straight Talk podcast with you and for all of our listeners out there really bothered me. I'm Bob Evans. He's Scott Kennison. Welcome back. Episode 13. I think you named it Fool's Gold. And that's pretty much how I feel. I feel like a fool today after what we witnessed on Sunday in the Browns game versus the Texans. We're going up against one of the hottest teams in the NFL. I knew better. I knew better all week long. I kept telling myself the Browns are not going to win this game. The Browns are not going to win this game. Then we had that very fun impromptu live pregame show Sunday morning with myself, you, and TJ. And I want to thank him if he's listening to this. TJ, thank you for joining us. Hopefully everybody out there, enjoy that had a chance to listen, enjoyed listening to TJ as well. But TJ got me hype. He got me real excited, thinking this could be a trap game for the Texans. They're playing too well, and the Browns are riding high and riding hot with Baker Mayfield, and I changed my prediction, and I was wrong. But Scott, you were right, so I'm going to let you kind of get us started on, why you thought the Browns were going to lose to the Texans, aside from the Texans being a damn good football team, and how you almost got the prediction right.
Well, I think one of the things I didn't see was Romeo Crennel giving Baker Mayfield an education with false pre-snap looks. Romeo Crennel was showing Baker Mayfield something pre-snap that absolutely wasn't there. And they were shifting out of it. They were making it look like they were going to run certain coverages, dropping linebackers into zone, bringing blitzers from angles that Baker wasn't expecting, making people looking like they were going to blitz, drop into zone coverages, gave him some hybrid looks. And it gave Baker an education. And there were windows that Baker Mayfield thought were going to be there that just weren't. Romeo Crennel set traps for him all day long, and it paid off. And that pains me to say that Romeo Crennel outthought and outschemed our offense, but it is the truth. Romeo Crennel wasn't thinking about RBs on Sunday, and Romeo Crennel absolutely called one hell of a game. One thing that I did see, and I think was a bigger problem than people thought, is this will be your drinking game every time I say it. We had some fool's gold on the offensive line in the last 2 weeks. And that offensive line looked better. It looked like your changeup at left tackle was going to be a solution. And you thought maybe this line was coming together and learning how to play. But the truth of that might have just been that you were playing two teams that weren't able to get pressure on the quarterback. And everything you do on offense looks better when your quarterback has more time and is comfortable in the pocket. But the biggest thing that contributed to Sunday's loss, and I guess we were guilty of it too, we spent a good portion of the pregame show talking about what the Browns needed to do differently to slow down that pass rush and to help the offense be effective. And we were talking about running screens at Jadeveon Clowney if he blitzed and running him to the vacated spot. We were talking about quick hit pass routes. We were talking about doing a lot of things differently than the Browns had been doing. And Freddie Kitchens and Greg Williams bought into that too, because they did not run their offense in the first half. They ran an offense that was specifically put in to slow down the Texans' pass rush and to neutralize J.J. Watt and to neutralize Jadeveon Clowney. And in the process, they neutralized themselves. The alternate title for tonight was Smarter Than the Room, because they came out and thought that they were going to outsmart the other team. And it's one of those things that I remember my grandfather saying it many, many years ago, and it's always rung true to me. We always go out and adjust our game plan to other teams. We never go out and do what we do well and see if we can make other teams adjust to us. It's always intelligent to sit there and say, can I do this against the team that I'm playing? What wrinkles does this team, our opponent this week, bring that I have to game plan for and I have to account for? But you try to account for that within the confines of your own system and using your own weapons. And then you've got to sit there and say, I still have to try to do what we do best and see if they can stop it. And what I felt the Browns did was on offense and defense, they scrapped what they do best to do what they thought they needed to stop the Texans. On offense, they were doing a lot of the quick developing plays, a lot of the screen passes, a lot of the stuff, double tight end sets that we were talking about you have to do to protect Baker Mayfield and give him time. In the process, though, they stopped doing a lot of the looks and a lot of the style of play that they had done a couple weeks ago that had been successful during this mini run of wins, the 2-win streak. On defense, that was the most passive I've seen the Browns defense play all year. They were very afraid of letting DeAndre Hopkins get open, and they were playing a very passive defense. And in the process of not getting beat deep, they just marched up and down the field on them. Well, they have a 12-minute to 2-minute time of possession advantage at one point. So you came out there on Sunday and went away from what you do well and started doing, you were passive on both sides of the ball. And that, I think, is what I'd love to see them replay that game coming out with the attitude that they did in the second half and the first half and see what would have happened.
You know, what really stood out to me, and obviously the time of possession thing, when Baker comes out and has 3 interceptions, I mean, granted, one of them was taken to the house, but when Baker has 3 interceptions and, you know, you're not sustaining any drives and you're not doing it, I mean, that's where the time of possession is going to really come into play. What really surprised me was the fact that the Browns could not get the run game going at all. I mean, Nick Chubb had 9 carries for 31 yards. He did have the touchdown, which he salvaged his day. And obviously, when you're playing from behind, when you're down, what were they down at one point? 23-0, 21-0, 23-0 at half. You know, you're not going to commit to running the ball. But a couple of things really stood out to me in this one on the offensive side of the ball. We'll start there. Really big fan of how Baker Mayfield came out in the second half. Because, you know, what's that? We always hear people talk about quicksand when it comes to young quarterbacks and young players in general. Like, that's what the first half was for Baker. Interception, interception, interception. Baker was sinking. Baker was just, you know, he was in quicksand. He was sinking. And that game could have continued that way. He could have easily come out, mailed it in, down in the second half. They could have gone super conservative, just trying to run the ball, get the hell out of there. And Baker came out dealing and had perhaps the best second half of any rookie quarterback ever, they were saying. Now, I'm not going to give it that much credit because it was down 23-0, and you know the Texans aren't going to. They still brought their defense, but you know they weren't playing. They were playing prevent, but they weren't playing prevent. You know they were like somewhere in between.
Even if you don't change schematically, a lot of times you can let up when you're coasting too.
Yeah, I mean if you think about it that way, you know you're just like, all right, if the Browns go on a 14-play, 7-minute drive here, that's fine because it eats away half of the third quarter for us. And now we get the ball back up 23-7 and can have an opportunity to run out the other half of the quarter. You know, but what was really driving me crazy, and I just don't get it sometimes. I really don't get it. Duke Johnson, no carries. Duke Johnson, 2 catches. Why are we going back to this type of... I mean, he had 7 targets, I think it was. Let me look at it. Yeah, 7 targets on the day. So they were trying to get him involved. But again, this just goes back to the earlier in the year when Hue Jackson was talking about trying to get Nick Chubb more involved. No, if you want to get a damn player involved, you're going to get him involved. One way or another. How Duke Johnson only had 2 catches when they were down 23-0 in the second half is absolutely beyond me.
I'm glad you brought this up because I'm going to elaborate on a mini Twitter rant that I went on, and people are going to take this as me hating Duke Johnson.
Was it during the game?
Yes, and it was right after the game.
See, this is why what I miss about not being on Twitter as much during the games, because since I have the PlayStation View, I only keep my mentions up during the game, and I'll tweet things out because PlayStation View is like 45 seconds behind because it's, you know, you're streaming it on the internet. And so everybody's like, so when I'm on my timeline during the game, I see the damn plays before they happen, or like I have to talk to my mom, like, Mom, don't text me during the game. Wait, count to 60, then you can text me. So sorry to interrupt, but yeah, no, I miss being able to see your rants.
It was actually on my way to work the next morning rant.
Oh, how did I miss this?
So here's the thing. Yes, we should be getting Duke Johnson more touches, and yes, he should be getting more carries. Duke Johnson should be carrying the ball 5 to 6 times a game, and he should probably be catching 5 to 6 passes out of the backfield. However, I am ready to call Duke Johnson new Josh Cribbs. Because every single time the offense stalls, we boil it down to we need to get Duke Johnson more involved. We can fix the evils on the offense if we just get Duke Johnson more involved. When Duke is having a good game, that is more of a symptom of the offense working and the base offensive game plan working so that Duke Johnson can make plays within it. If you are looking for your third down pass catching specialty back, if you're sitting there saying for us to be successful, we have to scheme plays and the ball into the hands of our third down specialty running back, you have bigger problems on offense. And the Browns do have bigger problems on offense. Jarvis Landry is not an elite number one wide receiver. He is a good wide receiver, but he is king of the twos or in the bottom third tier of the ones. He's not one of the top 10 wide receivers in the league.
He was never going to be.
No, he's king of the twos. He might be the best number 2 wide receiver in the league. Okay? That's who he is. Antonio Callaway had his best game on Sunday, and it wasn't great. But he's getting better. But at this moment, Antonio Callaway is not what you thought he was. David Njoku is a guy who has flashes. He is not, at this moment, what we thought he was. Seth DeValve is just a guy. On offense, weapon-wise, look, we talk about Hollywood Higgins. I'm not going to crap on Hollywood Higgins, but you better have a Hollywood Higgins on your team if you're an NFL team. Every team's got to have a guy like that. Got to. The problem with the Browns is it's not that you're not getting Duke Johnson enough touches, and I think we're looking at it as one of those salves that we slap on to say, we're not that bad. If we just figure out how to get Duke Johnson more carries, we'll be good. Duke Johnson is a valuable piece. The New Orleans Saints have used Duke Johnson type weapons forever. It is part of the new NFL. It is a weapon. But Duke Johnson is Eric Metcalf. And if you're counting on Eric Metcalf to be the centerpiece of your offense, you have much bigger issues on offense.
So a couple of things from everything you just said. I want to start with Duke. When you call him a third down pass catching back, I really feel like you're undervaluing what he can be. Because when I think of third down pass catching backs, I think of the guy that just comes in to chip, to just chip the pass rusher on third down and make sure the quarterback has enough time to throw the ball.
Oh, let me say this. I think he's David Meggett or Darren Sproles. I think that's a good analogy. One in the not so modern era and one in the modern era. That's what I think he is.
See, here's the thing about Duke, though. And this is why when I'm talking about getting the ball into Duke's hands, I'm not always just talking about him running the ball. All right, you have an aggressive pass rushing team like the Texans, right? Why are you not taking advantage of that, trying to slip Duke out of the backfield and drop him off a screen and get some blockers in front of him and let him rip off 25 yards? That's what Duke Johnson does. Why are you not lining Duke out wide with your given wide receiver situation that you mentioned where you don't really have anybody electric yet? And we'll talk about Callaway in a second. But you don't have anybody electric that is a dependable pass catcher. Like Jarvis is dependable pass catcher. He can make plays happen, but he's not really like your electric guy with the ball in his hands. Duke Johnson with the ball in his hands, he makes one man miss, he could be gone. So when I'm talking about getting Duke Johnson more involved, I view Duke Johnson as more than a third down pass catching back. I think Duke Johnson has value as a pass catcher. When you look at a team like the Chicago Bears, do you see a week where they don't try to make sure Cohen has, and when it's all said and done, I bet if you bring up his game log, Tariq Cohen, I'm going to mess up his name. Sorry, I didn't go to the pronunciation guide before this one. He will have the ball in his hands 8 to 10 times every single week because he has that same ability that Duke does. You can line him out wide. You can put the ball in his hands. He makes that first man miss and he's gone. So while, you're talking about guys like Dave Meggett and Sproles, I look at it as this is a commonplace in the NFL. The player might just have a different name on every team, but it's a commonplace in the NFL. You got a guy like Cohen. You got a guy like Tyreek Hill. Now, I'm not saying Duke Johnson is Tyreek Hill, but when the Chiefs had Tyreek Hill, nobody knew Tyreek Hill was going to be Tyreek Hill. They knew he was fast as hell, and they were going to do whatever they could to get the ball in his hands and allow him to make plays. So that's why when I talk about Duke Johnson, I'm not saying Duke Johnson needs to run the ball 10 times a game. I just want him to have the damn ball in his hands 8 to 10 times per game.
So if I implied that you think that anything other than what you just said, I apologize. It is not you.
First
who
off, you don't have to apologize.
That rant is, I don't have a problem with Duke Johnson. I think Duke Johnson is a weapon. I think he might be the third most valuable weapon on the offense, aside from Baker Mayfield. You know, Landry and Chubb are the two more valuable pieces, and then it's Duke Johnson for Baker Mayfield to work with. I think he is the third most important weapon that Baker Mayfield has on that offense. I actually think Duke Johnson should be the number 2 wide receiver on this team. Personally, I've been saying this whole year, it's time to just go full Eric Metcalf conversion and make him a wide receiver. He wants to be a wide receiver. He's probably a better wide receiver than a running back, and he has durability issues to be a running back. The guy is always getting up dinged and hurt, and that could be the other problem why his touches are limited. I feel like he's always coming up hurt. He is.
If he can't get 8 to 10 touches in the NFL, he shouldn't be on your football team.
He should.
I don't care how banged up he possibly could be. If you can't get 8 to 10 touches, if the team is that concerned, he shouldn't be out there.
He should be getting 8 to 10 touches a game. He should be. I agree with you. Whether that's 4 carries a game and 4 receptions, you know, it shouldn't be hard to figure out how to get Duke Johnson those looks. The problem with it is when are you putting him on the field? Because you're taking Nick Chubb off the field to put him on the field, unless you're putting him on the field as your 4th wide receiver, and they haven't really shown that they're willing to do that. So they're only willing to use him as a 3rd down running back. They haven't been willing to use him in place of Chubb and split the carries and split the reps. So you're using him as your backup running back. You're not really using him, at least I haven't seen them bring him in as an extra wide receiver. Have you?
Earlier in the year.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it lately.
Right. So now you're talking about a guy who's on the field on 3rd downs. So what percentage of 3rd down plays do you want targeted to Duke Johnson? And then you've got to be in the right down and distance to target Duke Johnson on 3rd down. I think it's harder to get Duke Johnson the touches you're looking for than we think, simply because they're limiting his role to 3rd down specialty running back.
Yeah, and we obviously can't control that. I'm just talking, you were down 23-0 in the second half. And I know in the first possession they came out, they ran the ball, obviously, with Chubb a little bit. But I find it very difficult to believe, especially in a game flow situation where you know you're going to be passing, that you can't find a way to get the ball into Duke Johnson. I just find it very difficult to believe.
There's 2 things on this rant that I focus on. One is we're asking the wrong question with Duke Johnson in my mind. It's not why are we not getting him more touches, it's why are we not using him as a wide receiver more, instead of trying to figure out how to get him more touches as a running back, because more touches for Duke means less plays on the field for Chubb, the way they're using him right now. And so the real question would be, why are they not using him as a 3rd wide receiver? Because is Antonio Callaway a better wide receiver right now? Is Hollywood Higgins a better wide receiver right now? Is Perriman a better wide receiver right now? And I'm not sure the answer in that situation. Is David Njoku, if you're splitting him out and not putting him on the line as a tight end, is he a better, more reliable wide receiver right now? More dynamic? I don't know. He's probably, in my mind, your 2nd best pass catching threat in this team right now. But the other problem I have is and I think I'm just getting annoyed. And when I get annoyed, I lash out irrationally.
No.
To me, this is Josh Cribbs all over again. I sat through the entire Josh Cribbs era with people telling me that this offense would be dynamic if we just made Josh Cribbs our number 1 wide receiver. And I said over and over again, if you're trying to figure out how to get your special teams punt returner the ball on offense, you're never going to be a good team. And when the Browns are finally a 10-win team, we won't be having debates on how important it is to get our 3rd down back more involved in the offense.
See,
I know I'm dismissing Duke Johnson as our 3rd down back, but right now that's what he is.
Right now, in the way they're using him. But again, I go to a team like the Chicago Bears, and that's a winning team, right? That's a team in playoff contention. They find a way to get the ball in their 3rd down running back's hands, if that's what because that's essentially in the utilization. Johnson and Cohen are very similar.
Damn you, Bob, for using facts to take apart my argument.
So, no, I'm not trying to take it apart. I'm just saying I think we need to view Johnson just a little bit more than as just a 3rd down pass catcher.
So I agree with you on that.
That's all I'm getting at. And that's why I feel like he needs to get the ball in his hands. They need to force feed him
as a wide receiver, because you're not going to run. You need to change what you think his position is, because right now he's either a split time running back with Nick Chubb, who has to be on the field more on second down and instead of just on third down, or you need to make him a wide receiver to get him on the field with Nick Chubb, or use more two-back sets. Not many two-back sets going on in the NFL a lot these days either, though. I mean, it's not as popular as it used to be.
Depends on your team.
You can
saw the Patriots quite a few times out there on Sunday with Mr. White and Mr. Burkhead on the field.
It's not impossible, but for the most part, the NFL isn't a two-back set league as much anymore as it used to be.
No.
So
because you have 37 receivers that you can throw.
Correct. So I think you're not wrong. I guess I just want to reposition that. We've gone down a rabbit hole here on this one, but I just want to reposition. In my mind, I think as a fan base, we need to reposition the Duke Johnson discussion from how do we get him more touches to when in the hell are we finally going to admit that this guy is a wide receiver who can also be a running back?
Other thing you said in your rant that I need to touch on, and it's less about what you said, and it's just the fact that you brought it up. Antonio Callaway. So in your rant, you said he's not who we thought he was. And this is less about you and more so about the fan base as a whole. The minute that Antonio Callaway was drafted in the 4th round, everybody's like, John Dorsey's got his Tyreek Hill. We've got the next Tyreek Hill on our football team. He's going to eventually be our number 1 wide receiver. He's working out with Antonio Brown. He's going to be Antonio Brown. And I'm just like, guys, it's a 4th round pick. Do you know how many wide receivers get drafted in total that just are never anything? But especially in rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, teams take flyers on guys with certain traits they like. In the 5th round, they'll take the 6'6" guy with the huge catch radius who might be a slow runner and see if they can specifically scheme things for him down in the red zone. In the 6th round, they'll take the kid with the 4.3 speed who's got a really questionable history and see if they can see if he cleans it up on the field and they can scheme things and scheme ways to get him open. It's what Andy Reid did with Tyreek Hill. Hill was he a 3rd or a 4th? Maybe it was a 5th. Mid-round pick. I'm just calling him a mid-round pick again. So when we drafted Antonio Callaway, everybody's looking at this kid and they're like, boom, it's our number 1. We got him. Got our guy. Kid hadn't played football in over a year, mind you. Had to sit out the entire year at Florida, off the football team, or suspended. So we had a kid who didn't play football for a year coming in here with Tyrod Taylor as his quarterback. Gets the driving with a suspended license thing going on. Instantly has questions about his past coming up all over again, right? And then he has a case of the dropsies early on. So now the entire fan base is like, he's a bust. He's not who we thought he was. People, the average wide receiver in the NFL generally takes 3 years when they're drafted in the 1st or the 2nd round to prove to be a legit number 1 or number 2 option. Yes, there's guys around the league that produce depending on their situation. Michael Thomas of the Buckeyes, for example, goes to Drew Brees. Michael Thomas is a route technician with good hands. The hell did you think was going to happen with Drew Brees throwing him football? Like, on the other side of things, Laquan Treadwell, a project, goes to the Vikings in the 1st round of that same draft, and his quarterbacks were, I forget.
Christian Ponder.
Or yeah, it was Ponder, or who was...
Tavares Jackson?
Yeah, and who was there, like before Case Keenum, there was somebody in between there too. So you have a project guy who's a big-bodied, strong guy with...
Sam Bradford?
It might have, they traded for Bradford too. So you've got guys that, can't really take advantage. Like, you don't have a Drew Brees. Drew Brees took Marquez Colston in the 7th round and made him a perennial 1,000-yard guy per year. So, but anyways, back to reeling it back in here so I don't go down the rabbit hole for 15 minutes. When we talk about rookies, especially rookies at the receiver position, and we say they're not who we thought they were, or this guy's a bust already, or... so on and so forth. He's not doing what I thought he would do. You have to realize that when it comes to rookies and rookie wide receivers, they're probably not going to be anything of what you thought they were going to be until year 3. 2014, anomaly. Huge anomaly. You had Mike Evans, Odell Beckham Jr. You had Sammy Watkins in that class. That class was ridiculous for production.
Even Sammy took a little bit to get going.
And Sammy was injured and inconsistent.
Yep.
So what I'm getting back at and coming full circle here is, like, let's not throw people away. Let's not just say this guy isn't worth anything.
Rephrase
this is why I argued with people for 2 years, and this is going to be a really bad example, but I'm always willing to throw myself, put myself out there. I don't hide from the things that I say. Corey Coleman, 2016 rookie, high upside guy, needed work on his routes, but he had the ability to take the top off of defense and was a big play guy. He was kind of like a Deshaun Jackson type. You throw him out there with quarterbacks who can't complete 56% of their passes and aren't putting the ball where he can catch it and aren't putting the ball on the routes that he knows how to run. And obviously, you're not going to get any production out of the guy.
What you talking about? That quarterback threw a catchable ball 47% of the time, Bob.
So what I'm getting at with rookie receivers is like, let's not say, and I know you're going to correct yourself, but I'm talking to everybody. I'm not talking to just you here. Let's not say I'm done with Antonio Callaway, because Antonio Callaway just showed you in that game. He showed flashes of what he can be. Now, I'm not talking about when he let the ball get knocked out of his hands. I'm talking about he had the ability to have the big play. Antonio Callaway can have the same impact that a Deshaun Jackson had his entire career on this football team. Just got to give him the time, be patient with him. Baker Mayfield is going to put the ball where he needs the ball to be.
Antonio Callaway, to me, is a disappointment, but I'm not writing him off. When I said he is not who we thought he was, when we got rid of Josh Gordon, everybody said it's okay because Antonio Callaway will step up and be just as good as Josh Gordon.
Those people were idiots.
Now, Josh Gordon is not lighting the league on fire right now, but he's consistently catching 3, 4, 5 for somewhere between 60 and 100 yards a game at this moment in time. Antonio Callaway so far has tended to. He hasn't lit the world on fire yet. He hasn't been terrible, though. I mean, he was 3 for 84 last game, 4 for 62, 2 for 39, 3 for 51, 5 for 36, 1 for 14, 2 for 9, 3 for 22. He's been trending in the right direction recently. And I stress trending in the right direction recently. In his rookie year, he has 33 catches for 472 yards and 3 touchdowns. He has been targeted 66 times. My problem with Antonio Callaway, where I say he is not what we thought he was, is on most teams right now, Antonio Callaway is your 4th receiver at best. And he has been our 2nd receiver for the entire year. He right now, and the other problem I have with him, I've said this before, is its effort is free. And I don't always feel, I think what Antonio Callaway is going to have to learn in the offseason, and the question that's going to be answered is, how hard does he want to work? How hard does he want to realize that this isn't the college game because look, he is the most talented athlete in the field almost every week he steps onto the field. But in the NFL, there's technique monsters who can neutralize your 4-3 with their 4-5 because of superior technique. Everyone on an NFL field is a freaky athlete. And Antonio Callaway is going to have to go to work on his technique, work on his effort, work on his mental focus. And look, the game has probably come easy for Antonio Callaway because at every step of the way, he's probably been the superior athlete in every field he's ever been on. He's still that superior athlete, but you see what I'm saying? That it shrunk. And Antonio Callaway is going to have to go to work for the first time, maybe, in that respect of working to not be able to have superior talent carry him through by just walking out onto the field.
So one last thing on Callaway, and then we can turn the page on this. 21 years old.
Yeah.
He'll be 22 years old on January 9th. I'm not writing
Antonio Callaway off. What I meant with that statement is today, not what he can become. Today, he is not the person that everybody said and thought that he would be this season.
Do you have Callaway's stats up there still?
I do.
What's he at this year?
472. 33 catches, 472, 3 touchdowns.
For next week, I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna do like a 5-year historical thing. I'm willing to put myself out here and say that if he continues at that trend for the remainder of the season, his end of the year statistics, based off of just the trends there, whatever his average catches are and average yards per catch and all that for the rest of the year, I'll do like a 16 game projection. I'm willing to say that his production is 85 to 90% better than all 4th round wide receivers drafted in the last 10 years.
I'd probably agree with you on that off the top of my head. And look, I get frustrated with Antonio Callaway. I'm not writing him off. There's too much talent there. Every time he walks on the field, he's probably the most talented athlete on the field. And you can't write that guy off. This isn't Greg Little. He's not dropping passes because he can't catch passes. He just has to. Kid's got to go to work.
Absolutely.
He's 21 years old. If the kid goes to work and doesn't throw away or squander, I don't want to sound harsh here, because he's just got to make the most of this God-given talent and go to work and maximize this potential, because he's got the potential to be the best of the best. Does he go get it?
Last thing I want to talk about from this game, because we've spent way more time on this game than I thought we were going to. Usually every week, I'm losing my mind over the Browns' inability to cover a back out of the backfield or cover a tight end out of the backfield. Or, tight end anywhere, really. This week, I want to know how the hell you come into a football game going up against Deshaun Watson with the understanding that Deshaun Watson can run the football. Deshaun Watson's probably going to run with the football. And yet every single time it is 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, there's nobody spying Deshaun Watson. Oh, Deshaun Watson drops back. Oh, we got good coverage out there. Oh, we got it. It could be a coverage sack. Oh, hey, there goes Deshaun Watson for 9 yards. Oh, Deshaun Watson drops back to pass on 3rd and 3. Oh, his primary's gone. Oh, look at this big ass hole right in the middle of the field. He's just going to run for 5 and get the first down. I understand it's Greg Williams. I understand Greg Williams is, well, it's technically his son, Blake, right now. I understand that Greg is Greg, and Greg's going to do what Greg's going to do. And we can definitely ask Lane about it here in a little bit when we can get him on to talk about the game a little bit too. But I just want to know why in the world that nobody on this team remembered that number 4 can run the football. That's all. It drove me crazy. And like I said, I didn't want to talk too much longer on this game, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring that up.
So I think this goes back to what I started with here, in that they were scared. They did not know. They were terrified. And it amazes me that they were terrified defensively of the Houston Texans, because they have weapons. I mean, they do have weapons. They've got one of the best wide receivers in the league. Deshaun Watson is a weapon. They're running the ball effectively, and they got whatever they wanted. But that was one of the more passive, probably the most passive Greg Williams defense I've ever seen. And once Denzel Ward went out, they were absolutely on their heels the whole time. You had linebackers dropping. You had, everything there was don't get beat, don't get beat, don't get beat. And I think about this one, and I think over and over and over again, why is Greg Williams playing so conservatively? And if he is, who is he trying to hide? Well, one, he's trying to hide Jamie Heart of the Lemming Collins, because I know people don't like me messing with the names, but I'm keeping Heart of a Lemming.
With Collins, you are allowed.
The Heart of a Lemming, you're hiding him because the effort isn't there and the athletic ability is starting to wave bye-bye to him to play in the NFL. So he is covering him. I think that once Christian Kirksey went out on outside linebacker, you've been covering some of that over there in the ability in coverage schemes. I know that you've had guys step up and play well out there, but I think you're covering and you're trying to replace a Christian Kirksey who's a good coverage linebacker and can get to spots that he needs to be on the field. Joe Schobert's a good coverage linebacker, good run stopping linebacker. He's everywhere. I don't think you're covering for him. So it leads me to believe that you're covering at the safety position, but Demarius Randall is having a Pro Bowl year. So are you covering for Peppers? Is that who you're covering for? Are you covering for your cornerbacks aside from Denzel Ward because you don't trust Gaines and you don't why am I drawing a blank on the other cornerback right now?
Carey.
Are you afraid that TJ Carey and EJ Gaines can't cover? Are you trying to cover because Brian Body Calhoun can't cover? Because I look and I say, it's not Denzel Ward you're trying to help. It's not Demarius Randall, who's having maybe the best year of his career. It's not Joe Schobert. So, and your defensive line is phenomenal. So are they just that bad in run stopping that you're trying to, or are you just so gung-ho on blitzing that you feel that you need to play this passive coverage? Whatever it is, he is terrified that someone out there can't cover, and he's scheming this defense to cover a weakness, and I'm not positive, aside from Heart of a Lemming, what it is.
So one quick thing, not correcting you, just letting you know, EJ Gaines is out for the year. That's actually Phillip Gaines. When you see Gaines out there, that's the kid from Kansas City who was up in Buffalo.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know. I literally saw Gaines out there, and I was like, I thought EJ was out for the year, and then I go, oh shit, it's Phillip. That's right. So just in case anybody listening too, if you saw Gaines out there and you didn't realize it was EJ, or it's not actually EJ, it's Phillip.
I can't figure it out. I don't know. It is definitely a lot of things he does with his pass coverage and dropping those linebackers. Those linebackers are just giving up everything underneath within 10 yards every time. He's terrified to get beat deep. Maybe he feels he has people who can cover laterally, but he just feels that everyone on the team is going to get toasted deep. I don't know.
I think Jake kind of put it best this week, and I think it was Jake in his article. Jake Burns over on the OBR. You guys all know who I'm talking about. He kind of mentioned when he was breaking down the game and breaking down doing his breakdowns was that everybody applauds Greg Williams and applauds this attacking and this exciting takeaways defense, but it's not sustainable. It's just, he thinks he's like ahead of the curve because he's like, oh, well, the offense is going to get theirs anyways. We're just going to bend and not break. But the version of bend, not break that he plays is just, it's not actually modern and with the times. But I'm going to let that go. I don't have anything more on the Texans game. We lost. You were right. I was right in the article, but wrong on the air. So I hedged my bets, I guess. Before we get into the Panthers game and some coaching talk, I kind of want to do like a little rewind real quick before we get Lane on the phone. And, because we were off for 2 weeks, Thanksgiving, and then me and the sickness, some things happened. And one of them that we have to talk about, we talked about it with TJ on the live show, but, just in case anybody missed it, I have no problem at all. Not one problem in the world with Baker Mayfield and what he did and said with Hue Jackson. First off, I don't know where we came to in a society where when your former boss, you see him at a trade show or something like that, right? For those of us that are working. You used to work for Company X and your other boss is there, right? I didn't know we came to a point in a society where it wasn't enough to shake the hand of your former employer and accept his good work on the day and then move on. Everybody made a huge deal out of the fact that Baker Mayfield didn't bro hug and, dap out Hue Jackson like he was his BFF. There were obviously clear issues the entire time here in Cleveland between Baker Mayfield and Hue Jackson. And we know that for a fact now because of what Baker Mayfield said after the game. Again, I do not have a problem with this, where he just said, I didn't feel, I treated the situation how I thought it would be treated, and I didn't feel I needed to give him a hug. I don't know his exact quote, but, he just said it is what it is. And then, you just, and then in other quotes and other things, he called Hue Jackson fake on Instagram. And then he mentioned that, you don't know what was going on in the building. We had hints of it from Lane, for our OBR subscribers out there. But obviously there was a clear major issue between what Hue Jackson was doing inside the building and what we knew. And Baker Mayfield, the leader of this football team, the leader of men here, the rookie leader of men, felt that what Hue Jackson did in this locker room during his time here impacted this team negatively, impacted his brothers in the locker room. So why should he give Hue Jackson any more than a handshake and a thank you? Like, Hue Jackson sunned him. He did the thing that LeBron did to Kyrie every year here. He grabbed him by the back of the head. He sunned him. That'd have been enough for me. I'd have been like, nah, man, I'd had to brush him away. Don't touch the back of my head. I don't like my head being touched. Unless you are a female, you can touch my head. But if you're a male, you don't touch my head. That's just weird shit. All right. And so this whole thing and everybody in the media, Damian Woody and Ryan Clark, who the hell do these guys think they are? They're former players. You're telling me if Mike Tomlin would have been fired from the Steelers and went to work for the Browns, that Ryan Clark and the rest of the Pittsburgh Steelers would have been bro hugging and loving the shit out of Mike Tomlin on the other side of the field? No, they'd have been like, that man coached us up and wanted us to run through a wall for him. And now yes, we understand he got fired, but he's an enemy now. Why are we at this point in society where we feel that we can't be enemies with somebody? Enemies in terms of sports, off the field, if you're an enemy or whatever, it is what it is. But why do we feel like after the game's over, we have to dap people out, we have to bro hug them, we got to jersey swap, we got to do everything like that? And this is rare for me. I'm normally not the get off my lawn guy right now, but I feel like this has just gone to the point where it's It's like, this is the modern day version of the participation. Oh my God. Oh, I can't say the word. Wow. I'm going to get destroyed on Twitter after
your
this.
Your nemesis is coming for you on that one.
Parsipitation.
Get off my lawn.
Participation?
There you go.
There it is. It's like the modern day version of that. Like, oh, hey, we lost, but hey, man, let me sign this jersey for you. Oh, hey, man, we lost. Let me bro hug. Let me dap you out. All that stuff. Like, I'm cool with them if you do it, but why are we making a big deal when a player doesn't do it? That drives me crazy.
I can tell you that playing old man flag football, well, I should say I'm the old man. Everyone I'm playing against is like 22 or 23, and it's ridiculous, and I don't understand. But hey, you know what? I'm not going to give up. I'll be the guy 10 years, 15 years older than everybody out there. But playing flag football, playing softball, I don't want to go joke and laugh about losing a game. Man, I got ejected from my softball championship game in the third inning, screaming down the umpire like Lou Piniella, kicking dirt on him, nose to nose, screaming in his face that he was bleeping worthless and a piece of garbage until they said up to the scorekeeper to call the cops, and then I left to fire my team up. Now, maybe that's over the top, but the point is that you're competing and you're competitive, okay? And when that happens and you lose, you're not going to want to go make jokes and hug it out and slap hands. It always astounds me that I see Peyton Manning and Ben Roethlisberger laughing like nothing happened, and they just lost the AFC Championship game at midfield 3 seconds ago, 28-24. It's like, no, I'm mad. I'm going to go punch a Gatorade bottle. I get it. They got millions of dollars and a fat bank account and a great life. But man, those guys are in car accidents, essentially, 52 times a game. Their bodies are broken. Some of them are playing concussed with brain damage at this point. And you expect them to just be happy and not frustrated and not playing emotion? No, it doesn't work that way. Baker Mayfield, now look, it wasn't right afterwards, but it's still competitive. And he felt that Hue Jackson, he got fired, but he took the first job he could in season to go to a team in division. Now, personally, I don't think Hue Jackson did anything wrong. From the employee side of it, Hue Jackson was fired, and he owes nothing to John Dorsey, nothing to Jimmy Haslam. There is no reason why he shouldn't go take a job for whoever will pay him as soon as he can. And to be quite honest, he is allowed to think of himself over those players. From the players' perspective, they can look at it and say, I never liked this guy, so bleep him. And that's what's clear. And by the way, the more disrespectful thing that nobody's talking about is Randall.
That was fantastic.
Planning before the game that if I pick the ball off, I'm going to give it to the coach.
Best thing is he's standing there, he's talking to, I think it was Chubb and Duke on the sideline because he was mic'd up for the game. And he just tells them, if I get a pick, it's going to Hue. Y'all better be ready to fight.
Clearly, here's the thing. Everyone wants to say what this says about Baker because, look, there's people laying in wait to call Baker Mayfield a douchebag. I spent a lot of time calling Baker Mayfield a frat boy douchebag when he was in college because he behaved like one. He waited for a TCU player to come running out of the tunnel so he could throw the warm-up ball off his head. Can't tell me that wasn't happening. Baker Mayfield did a lot of douche bro things in college. And my guess is Baker Mayfield is still a douchebag a good portion of the time. Now, I know I'm treading on thin ice here because that's our quarterback. Don't make fun of him. Great football player. Look, Tom Brady is a great quarterback. He's probably a massive douche. Brett Favre is my favorite quarterback of all time.
We know he is.
The guy sends dick pics to Jen Sturger, and he's probably the biggest jackass you've ever met.
Are you actually going to leave that in this time instead of editing it out?
Well, yes, because the last time I implied something else about that and had to take it out. The bottom line is, just because you're a douchebag doesn't mean you're a bad quarterback. But people are waiting to jump on Baker Mayfield and see, I told you this kid's classless. And that's our new society, too. You said, why does everyone think you got to hug it out? Because we think everyone's got to love everyone. I got news for you, millennial generation. I got news for you, people in my high-end or low-end Gen X generation right on the border, okay?
I'm technically a millennial, just so you know. Just saying. It's where my age range sits.
Get off my lawn. Get out of my studio. But the bottom line is not everyone's going to like you. You don't have to like everyone. Not everyone has to like you. Not everyone has to respect you. Everyone has to treat you like a human being. Everyone has to treat you with the basic humanity. They don't have to like you. They don't have to come up and be your friend. They don't have to support you. Your friends have to support you. Your family has to support you. Someone shouldn't come out and just tear you down and crap on you and shit on you just to ruin your day. But they don't have to like you. And Baker Mayfield doesn't have to like Hue Jackson. It is okay for Baker Mayfield to say, I think the guy's fake. I think the guy's an asshole. I'm glad he's gone. I don't want to associate with him. Clearly, many people on the Browns did, because nobody went out there taking up for Hue Jackson on the current roster. Nobody went out there saying, man, we felt coach got a wrong deal. What you've heard is they didn't like the guy because Hue Jackson is an arrogant shitbag who put them in a position to lose games every single week, and they were happy that he's gone because maybe now they can win a goddamn football game. Okay, I'm done.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm glad I just wanted to revisit some things that have happened while we were gone and not recording. That's great.
I haven't done too many of those rants on this show, have I? Where they just break out of nowhere.
I'm actually tweeting out right now. Hue is an arrogant. What did you say? An arrogant
shitbag.
Shitbag.
I believe that's the technical term.
All right, now let's shift our focus over onto this week's game, which has the Cleveland Browns taking on the Carolina Panthers at First Energy Stadium on Sunday. I haven't decided if I'm actually going to go to the game or not with my season tickets. If I don't, I'm going to give them to two diehard friends of mine. We'll make them buy them off me, obviously, because those things are going for for some reason, Scott, I looked it up on on the third party markets right now, secondary market, whatever you want to call it. My dog pound seats, which are $65 face, are going for like $90, $95 after a loss against the Panthers.
This is usually the time of year where they're going for like $17.
Right. Yeah, no. So two of my buddies asked me, they're like, hey, are you going to the game on Sunday? If not, can we get your tickets from you on the cheap? And I go, so I obviously never have a problem with giving anybody like a deal on things, because especially you're my buddy. Shit. And 9 times out of 10, if they'd have just waited till Sunday and text me at like 10 a.m. in the morning when I'm already downtown having a couple of drinks, I probably would have just given them to them for free. But when they asked me earlier in the week, I'm like, yeah, so they're 65 face. If you guys want them for 65 a piece, you can have them. And not that I'm trying to make any money off of anybody. I mean, I obviously already paid $130 for these seats as part of my season ticket package, but it was just like, I felt bad. I almost felt bad writing it. I'm like, so they're going for like 90 right now on the secondary market. So I can either just upload them here and they'll be sold in like 5 minutes, or if you guys want them for, I mean, honestly, when it comes all said and done, I'll probably just tell them to give me $100 for $50 a ticket. And just because I know they're diehard fans, the one guy's been a season ticket holder up in the uppers for like 30 years or something, but he gave away his tickets to this game to a family member and now he wants to go. So, but anyways, that's my little rant about it. I haven't decided if I'm going to go to the game or not, but I probably won't. I'm probably just going to go tailgate and then go to Dive Bar for the game, because as TJ can attest, I have a very, very good time at Dive Bar. I have a little bit too good of a time at Dive Bar, but I have a great time at Dive Bar.
But it sounds like you need to be going back to Dive Bar, because you made some inroads at Dive Bar.
I did. Apparently I did. I was very worried about this, honestly. I was asking one of my buddies afterwards, I'm like, all right, so Ohio State, Michigan, how bad was I? And they're like, no. They're like, you were blacked out, but as a 33-year-old grown man, I'm admitting on the air right now that I was blacked out the last thing I truly remember from Ohio State, Michigan was the block punt return for a touchdown. And after that, I bought a bunch of shots, handed them out, and was too busy celebrating, going nuts. And just after that, I remember getting home, and I remember, pretty much.
That is always the worst moment. You're like, what did I?
Yeah, I don't like to see. I don't usually get that way, but
how bad was I last night?
So, and it usually doesn't happen to me. I'm usually really good about it, but I was drinking Christmas ale like I drink Coronas. And then mixing in green tea shots, which has Jameson in it. We got there at a little after 10 in the morning. Game started at noon, and I think we left at 6. I think. I'm putting an asterisk on that because I actually don't know the exact time that I left. I was just looking at my phone call log, and I was like, I called somebody at this time. I must have been at home. But anyways, that's what I want to do.
You want my worst how bad was I
Oh, geez.
story ever. I really don't know if this.
We're going to hold on
the air.
We'll talk about the Panthers-Browns game in a second.
This is okay. So back in 2009, I think, when Ohio State played USC after they lost to LSU in the national championship game, and they lost that one in the on the last play in the fourth quarter, and USC scored the go-ahead win. Well, I don't remember that because I was passed out before halftime.
Nice.
At the Ohio State LSU national championship game, my buddies and I they had power hour at old scorekeepers in Parma Heights. Now you know we're in trouble because that place was just a punch palace and get as drunk as you can.
I remember that place.
So one of my friends came back with a tray of 30 grape bombs that was supposed to hold us through for the full power hour pregame for the three of us. Well, the other guy went up and said, no, I got to buy. So he came back with a tray of 30. And I sat there and said, you know what? I've got to go buy two because I can't be the cheap ass who doesn't buy the return shots. So now we each have a tray of 30 of these in front of us. We drank them all before that game started. So leading up to the next season, we were joking around that, we were the record holders for the most, grape bombs in an hour. You want to talk about some douchebag stuff. I decided that I was going to do 40 of them in an hour, and I was just going to try to top that. And I had the DJ doing like play-by-play. So before the game started, I had thrown back like 27 of them in like 25 minutes. That's the last thing I remember was number 27 and the DJ going, uh-oh, we got a problem here. I remember nothing after this. I woke up at 3:30 in the morning on my couch in my living room. And I didn't have my wallet or anything. I realized I had left my tab open, so I drove back to the bar because it was still open. They were closing up, and I went in and paid my tab and got my debit card, closed it out. And I called my buddy in the morning. I'm like, man, how bad was I last night? I mean, what happened? He just starts laughing. He goes, you got to be done, man. He goes, you want to know what happened? So when they dropped, Ohio State scored a touchdown, and they dropped balloons from the ceiling. And my drunk ass jumped up off the chair to grab one, caught the balloon, and brought my elbow down into my friend's fiance's eye.
Oh, very nice.
Cracked her in the eye. I have a vague memory of him threatening to kick my ass. And I'm like, I didn't know she was behind me. It was an accident. He's like, it doesn't mean you elbowed her in the face. Later on that night, she broke off their engagement. So later on that night, he was like, I don't even care anymore. But so I did that to start. I kept walking up to some dude who was like 6'2", 225 pounds. And I'm, 5'8", 160, shoving him in the chest and yelling, walk away, bitch. I followed him around doing that over and over and over again. But at one point, if you remember scorekeepers, the way to the bathroom takes you past the DJ booth. And I thought I was turning into the men's room to go throw up. I was turning into the occupied DJ booth and threw up all over the DJ booth and the DJ. I don't know how I was ever allowed back in. So I tried to start a fight with some dude who could have just thumped me into the ground. I threw up all over the DJ booth and the DJ equipment, and I elbowed my friend's fiance in the face. So I didn't have a drink for 6 months after that.
Luckily for me, no matter what level of drunk I am, and we'll get to Browns Panthers after this, I'm the happy, fun, go lucky drunk. So I'm just always, the worst thing you're going to get out of me is that I was leaning over the bar trying to get the bartender to marry me. Like I was just overly bad about like trying to get her number or something. Like that's the worst that you're gonna get out of me. Now, never like creepy shit, just like over like trying to have a life conversation and be like, hey, you just want to get married or something. Like that's as bad as I get because I'm just the happy go lucky drunk, I guess.
Oh wow.
But all right. Browns Panthers.
I can never call someone a douchebag ever again because that's about the most douchey night ever. Trying to set up a shot drinking contest in the middle of the bar with yourself.
All right, Browns Panthers Sunday. We've got a game against another good football team coming to town with some weapons. You got Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey. I want to start on the Panthers offensive side of the ball. They just lost Greg Olsen for the year. Tore his plantar fasciitis, which sounds miserable because when mine acts up, I can barely walk after I'm running at the gym or doing any type of cardio. I could only imagine tearing it. Their wide receivers, they got the rookie DJ Moore, who has been inconsistent but had some big games. You have Devin Funchess, another guy, big games, inconsistent. The thing that is absolutely incredible to me, Scott, is the fact that Christian McCaffrey does not come off the field.
No.
For all of the talk about coming into when he came into the league, and everybody's like, well, it's because he's a white running back, but we can go down that path another day. But when he came in the league, oh, well, he's just going to be a pass catcher. He can't go between the tackles. This dude does not leave the field. We're talking like 98 to 90%, 99% of the snaps every game. Like, that's unheard of.
I can't resist this. This dude is who you think Duke Johnson is.
Well, here's the thing about Christian McCaffrey for me. When he was coming out, I argued with people. I would literally get into arguments. I don't really bring race into things ever. But when people were just ripping McCaffrey apart, he's not a between the tackle guys, anything like that. I would just go get random like workout numbers from the combine, and I would tweet them out. I'd be like, oh, his 3-cone is this. His 20-yard is this. Another guy is this and this. Which running back do you like? Oh, running back A. Well, running back A is Christian McCaffrey. And, oh, well, who's the guy that his numbers are really close to? Shady McCoy. Hey, those numbers. Oh, man, those numbers are really close to that guy. Who's the other guy? You know, it was, I forget. It was just like, it was just all of like some of the top running backs for like the last 10 years, and all of his workout and production numbers from Stanford, everything matched to the elite workhorses in the NFL.
Yeah, but because was just convinced he was going to be Owen Marusik.
Yeah, everybody was just convinced that because he was a smaller white dude, he could not run in the NFL. And he's absolutely proving everybody wrong. So for a Browns team that has been utterly gashed by the run all year long, I'm deathly terrified of this matchup for the Browns. And I don't think we shouldn't, let me say don't think, and let me remove don't think, because the Browns defense can always prove me wrong. I don't think the wide receivers shouldn't. The wide receivers should not give us too big of a problem. Like DJ Moore has shown out, but Devin Funchess.
You're afraid of old Torrey Wilson, or not Torrey Wilson,
Torrey Smith, Torrey
Wilson, the wrestler.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of Funchess. I'm not afraid of DJ Moore. Like, they don't scare me at all. Christian McCaffrey never leaving the field and being able to gash this defense to the tune of probably 220 yards of total offense on Sunday is a real thing that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple problems here. One is, obviously, Christian McCaffrey is going to absolutely destroy this team. You had problems last week stopping Alfred Blue and Lamar Miller. And while Lamar Miller is running well, he's no Christian McCaffrey. And I mean, that you have problems stopping the run, period. You're going to get torched. You're absolutely going to get torched. And if you think Heart of a Lemming is setting the edge on him, you've got another thing coming. The other thing that I would do is I would be running him underneath on crossing patterns and making our linebackers cover him. Get him the ball in space, 8 yards off, and just let him create plays on us all day. I'd run him out of the backfield. The Browns can't cover anyone out of the backfield. The Browns can't cover anyone over the middle. It should absolutely be destroyed. You had problems last week spying Deshaun Watson. You're coming up against Cam Newton. Cam Newton is also a dual threat quarterback. Cam Newton is having one of the best years of his career, and it's lost right now. Cam Newton right now is completing 69.5% of his passes. He's already thrown for 3,000 yards. He's got 24 TDs and 11 interceptions. And by the way, he's rushed the ball 91 times for 450 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Another thing about Cam real quick. In his career, he's been like a 50% completion guy in the red zone, which is like ranked like dead last among qualifying quarterbacks. He's over 70% this year.
Yeah, Cam Newton. Look, Cam has never completed more than 61% of his passes, and that's his high. He's only completed more than 60% of his passes twice in his career, and he's at 69.5% this year. He's having a phenomenal year. And Jim Rome, they're phenomenal. Incredible. All the 4-syllable words, man. But it's too much. This is going to be a problem. And while Funchess doesn't scare me and Torrey Smith doesn't scare me, the fact of the matter is Cam Newton throwing the ball to anybody right now against this defense scares me, because the Browns, is Mitchell going to be back this week?
All signs are pointing to it, but the Browns haven't like made it official yet. The only thing that I saw was that he was eligible to come back, and he had already served the 2 weeks in between, because you can come back and practice with the team for 2 weeks, but then you can come back for like the last 4 weeks or whatever it was.
Just look at Cam's last 3 games, and his last game was his worst in these 3. 25 for 37 for 357, 25 for 30 for 256. and 28 for 41 for 300. Now, granted, he threw 4 interceptions in his last game. He's thrown 6 interceptions in his last 3. So the Browns might pick him off. But this dude's back to playing. I mean, he plays like this. You got to talk about as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's back to being in that conversation again. Cam's having a year. And when you combine that with Christian McCaffrey, I mean, there's a lot of problems for the Browns this week.
So what's intriguing, and I want to drop this before I go over to the defensive side of the ball, because I think that's really where the Browns have a lot of opportunity, is they can attack the Carolina defense. I believe last time I saw this game was a 2-point spread with a 47 over-under. So putting our Vegas hats on for a second, but that's a lot of points, and this game has sneaky shootout potential. The reason for that, in terms of DVOA, Carolina is 28th in the league versus the pass, 8th versus the run, 26th overall. So Baker Mayfield will have plenty of opportunity to continue off of that second half that he put up against the Texans. Going a little further from there, they're 22nd in the league, giving up 256.8 yards passing per game, but they're 6th in the league at giving up 96.3 yards rushing, and they're 21st in the league at 25.5 points per game. So what this all tells me is this could be a very, very fun back and forth, and Baker Mayfield and the Browns offense have a lot of opportunity for success. With that said, it also says that Nick Chubb could have a tough going of it as well. But if you can get Nick Chubb going in this one, and even though all the numbers say that Carolina is really good against the run, if I'm the Browns, I'm coming out trying to establish the run early, because if you can expose Carolina a little bit in the run where they're actually good, that's going to even open it up even more for the passing game against that terrible pass defense.
The key, in addition to getting Nick Chubb going, what's been most important for the Cleveland Browns all year is how clean you keep Baker Mayfield. If you can protect Baker Mayfield for 3.5 to 4 seconds and keep that jersey clean, this offense looks very, very good. Baker Mayfield has not yet become the quarterback who is a blitz beater. So there's 2 things that you need to watch on offense, and if you can do those things, then absolutely this can be a sneaky shootout type of game, and the Browns do have advantages potentially in that passing game. You know, Baker Mayfield has been playing very well. I could agree with you seeing the Browns score some points. I don't think this is going to be one of those weeks where the offense struggles to score. I don't. But I do think that the Browns are probably going to end up being a one-dimensional team. They have struggled to run the ball consistently throughout the year. Chubb has had some good games, but the Browns are still not a powerhouse team that can line up and run the ball when they want to. And it makes me think that it's going to be very hard for them to get the running game going against a very good rushing defense, which then makes them one-dimensional, which then can get you into problems later on in the game.
Another interesting nugget while I was doing my data statistics deep dive. So Carolina's kind of middle of the road when it comes to takeaways, which is, it's good. They're +1 on the year. They don't give away the ball a lot, but they also don't take it away a lot either. That's huge, because Baker's coming off of a game again where he had 3 interceptions in the first half, and we're going to need Baker to play mistake-free football. I mean, that was something that we talked about on our pregame live show with TJ, was that this is an opportunity, during these victories for the Browns, or when they've been playing better since Hue and Haley were fired, they played a lot of mistake-free football. And then we saw everything kind of unravel and flow downhill in the first half, where with 3 interceptions, one of them returned to the house, and all of a sudden the Texans had a 23-0 lead in the blink of an eye. So where you talk about Baker needing to stay clean in terms of the offensive line, keeping them upright, I need Baker and that offense to stay, and the team as a whole, really, because they had a lot of penalties again on Sunday against the Texans. There was a lot of mistakes made in this game, and they have not made as many mistakes since the Hue Jackson and Todd Haley firings, and that's what led to winning football and going from there. So in this game, what I need to see from the Cleveland Browns is back to mistake-free football as possible. Like, you're going to have penalties called. You're going to screw up during the course of the game, but don't make those the back-breaking mistakes. Don't throw the pick 6. Don't have the holding on the 70-yard touchdown pass. Like, you can't have things like that. And those are the things that, especially against a good football team like the Carolina Panthers, with a quarterback like Cam Newton and a running back like Christian McCaffrey, those are the type of things good players take advantage of. That's what the Houston Texans did. Deshaun Watson took advantage of the Cleveland Browns' mistakes on Sunday, and it could happen again. Do you have anything else about this game, or should we go to predictions?
No, I'm ready to go to predictions. I think this game's pretty straightforward in a lot of ways. I mean, but it comes down to stopping McCaffrey. And if you can do that, then you give yourself a good chance to win this game, because I think a lot of what's making Cam look like he's having his best year is a lot of what he's doing on the field. I don't think that the Browns have the personnel to do that. That's the thing. So I guess I'll lead right into my prediction here. I think this is one that gets ugly, and I'm going to say the Browns lose this game 38-21. I think that the Browns struggle out of the gate like they have with their offense. Carolina doesn't. You might see this game heading something like 21-10 at halftime, 21-6. I don't know how I get to 21 points from 6, but whatever. And I think you look at something where it's like 38-21 at the end. The Browns are going to score their points. They're going to move the ball. But ultimately, I think that I just don't see them stopping this offense. I know this is a team that's lost 4 in a row, but I think this is one of those games where I don't see how you have an answer for McCaffrey. I think it's going to be a lot like the Chiefs game where they march up and down the field. I watched the Texans, who overall I don't think are a better offense than the offense they're going up against this week. And I watched the Texans move up and down the field at will on this team. I don't think the Browns are going to win this week. Now, I will say, before you think I'm just going negative on the Browns all the way out, I'll start to get more positive on the Browns as they start to play the opponents in the last few weeks, because I think that's more the speed and skill level that the Browns can go win games at.
So for me, this game, as weird as it sounds, I feel like this game environment, the Carolina's defense is nowhere near the level of the Houston Texans defense. And we saw Baker carve them up in the second half. Granted, they were down 23-0, but Baker carved them up in the second half. Baker's the type of guy to me that doesn't seem like he makes the same mistake game after game. Like, he made those mistakes against the Texans. He corrected them at halftime. Now he'll have a full week to process the mistakes that he made against the Texans and go up against an easier defense with the Carolina Panthers, especially one that struggles as badly as they do against the pass. So when I look at this game as a whole, I think obviously Christian McCaffrey is going to get his. Christian McCaffrey has the opportunity to absolutely shred us. But at the same time, this game feels like the Falcons game all over again. Feeding off the home crowd, 30 degrees outside, probably snow. Will Cam be able to be as effective throwing the football as he has all season long in a little colder weather up north here instead of in the friendly confines of the South where he plays a lot of his games, being in North Carolina and then, playing the likes of New Orleans and Tampa Bay all year long. So I think that, and I mean, this game script is perfect for Christian McCaffrey. Just feed Christian McCaffrey all game long. And run the ball with Cam. It's a great game script for the two players they have.
If Christian McCaffrey is not on the field, then I would think.
Well, he's not going to not be on the field.
I'm saying if you take him off the team, I think that I'd go with the win. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting your prediction.
No, you're good.
But to me, it comes down to I don't see how the Browns contain him. I don't believe the Browns have an answer for him.
So, and I agree that I don't think the Browns have an answer for him, but I also think that this game could get into shootout mode, and I think that Baker Mayfield can win a shootout versus Cam Newton. I know Cam Newton's having his best year. I know that he has the superior plus weapon in Christian McCaffrey on his side, but I think the home crowd, I think the pissed off because he had a bad first half against the Texans, Baker Mayfield is going to come out. And I think that this is a game where the Browns could actually come out and kind of jump on the Panthers early. My prediction is going to be a Browns victory. And it's not because I'm feeling sentimental or anything like that. I just think this is a game the Cleveland Browns can win. I think it's a game that if the Cleveland Browns win, it's 28-24. The Panthers Christian McCaffrey is going to get his. Like, Christian McCaffrey is probably, if you play daily fantasy football, load up on Christian McCaffrey this week because he's probably going to have 170 total yards and 2 touchdowns. But at the same time, if Christian McCaffrey scores 2 of the touchdowns, where's the other touchdowns coming from enough to I don't think DJ Moore, I don't think Devin Funchess, I don't think those guys are going to beat the Cleveland Browns this week. I think it's like Christian McCaffrey would have to have a Jamal Lewis 300-yard day or whatever it was, like back in the day, type of day for me to feel like the Browns were going to get blown out in this one. So I'm going with Browns 28-24, and yeah, that's how I feel about that game. So from there, I know we said we were going to talk about head coaching a little bit, and I really don't want to get into like a deep talk about it, but we do have some OBR subscriber questions, and they actually brought up head coaches in there. So I feel like that's a good way to go with the show right now and then end it. Let's go with a couple of OBR subscriber questions. I do want to
give you one more name to watch. Just I had to check here real quick. The guy who I think could jump up, and he hasn't done a lot for him this year, but I think he could be used against the Browns to terrorize them. Former Buckeye Curtis Samuel.
He has been, yep.
He's the type of guy that the Browns are susceptible to misdirection, over pursuit. You dial up some plays for him on some end arounds or some misdirection running plays, some screen passes that the Browns can't stop, some special teams plays. I think Curtis Samuel could have a big day and make the Ohio faithful here upset for once instead of happy. Just wanted to add that in there.
No, you're good. All right, let's go to the OBR subscriber questions. Get out of here because I'm sure we've been talking a lot.
Hour and 10. We're right on pace.
Hey, look at us go. All right, first OBR subscriber question comes from Kudra Tab. Who on the coaching staff should be retained by the new head coach?
So if you ask me who, I would tell you to retain Greg Williams, and I would tell you to allow Freddie Kitchens to interview for the offensive coordinator job. I'm not going to say that you go out and you retain Freddie Kitchens because I haven't seen enough yet. I've seen good and I've seen bad. Last week's first half game plan was bad. The second half game plan against the Bengals was bad. The first half game plan against the Bengals was phenomenal, and I was ready to make him the head coach for what he did in the first half. I would give him an interview as it sits today. But if I come across a better, more talented, established dynamic play caller, then I would probably give the job to that person rather than keeping Freddie Kitchens. I would put Greg Williams back on this defense. And I know this is insane for some of the things I say about Greg because I sound like he frustrates me and I go nuts because the guardian angel drives me crazy and the linebackers giving up 10 yards underneath on every play drives me crazy. But there is also something intangible that is transferring from his personality to this defense, and that act hasn't worn thin yet, and he's resonating with some of these younger players, and this defense is getting after it. You add him a couple of players, some dynamic hair-on-fire linebackers. Like I said, Christian Kirksey is a good linebacker, but he's not a hair-on-fire linebacker. Heart of a Lemon, you know how I feel about him. You replace, Peppers with a strong safety who's going to go out there and just knock someone's head off and can actually pass cover a little better than he can because he's just not good at it. You give him a dynamic strike sphere in the heart of the defense, strong safety that they're always looking for. Get him a second cornerback to go opposite of Denzel Ward and a hair-on-fire linebacker to repeat myself again. All of a sudden, this defense could be something special. There's something about this defense, and what really kills me about the fact of getting a new head coach is Greg Williams is going to go, and the dynamic and identity of this defense is going to walk out the door with him, and I don't want to see the identity of this defense go. So while I hate Greg's scheme, I love the attitude and intensity the team's playing with.
On my side of things, I started out with the wanting, DeFilippo as the head coach, and if Flip comes in here, everything's getting torn down. So if Arians is the guy, because those are pretty much where I'm at right now on head coaching. It could be anybody else, but those are my guys right now. If Arians becomes the head coach, I want Kitchens to stay on as the offensive coordinator no matter what. I think they have a good working relationship. Arians was grooming him for this when he was in Arizona, and I also think that for every reason that we talked about what Kitchens did well in those first couple of games as a play caller, he's only going to get better over time. He's only going to get better back under the tutelage of a guy that he respects, who's brought him up in this, who knows offenses like Bruce Arians does. And so I would love to see Kitchens stay. I'm the opposite of you with Williams. While I appreciate the hell out of the fact that he gets the guys to play and he's the great motivator and they're all clapping come get some bitch after games or to get hyped at halftime or whatever. Like, I love Greg Williams. Don't get me wrong. I like Greg Williams a lot as a motivator. I think Greg Williams, the schemer, is outweighing how much I like Greg Williams, the motivator. I think you could bring in a defensive coordinator who has more modern defensive schemes, who isn't giving as much as Greg Williams gives and can still motivate these guys. And also, I know it's a little cliche to say, but you're professionals. Like, if you can't get up, unless it's the Hue Jackson situation where you have a guy that's obviously bringing down the situation, right? You're bringing down the room. If you have a room where nobody's bringing you down. If you can't get up for a football game, you can't get hyped to play, you can't get hyped to go out and hit somebody in the face and get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to do it, you should question your career choice. And I understand that there's a place for great motivators, and I'm not saying you can't get a hype man. Like, you can get a hype man like Greg Williams to come in there, tell people to come get some bitch, get them fired up to play. I just, excuse me, the negatives of the scheme outweigh the keeping of Greg Williams for me. Now, would I be upset if they come? No, hell no.
That's a fair statement. That's the balance of Greg Williams. Do you like the attitude that he brings, and does it outweigh the deficiencies in the scheme, or do you want to see a better schemer? You know, it's what Ohio State has going right now. Are you going to be happy that you're going to have a guy who's going to give you more on game day right now in Ryan Day, or are you going to be upset that you're losing the recruiting? That's what it is with Greg Williams.
All right, his second part of his question, which I'll take because you had no prep time on this one. The Jaguars are way over the cap. Any players there you think are realistic trade targets after the season? And then in parentheses, I've always liked Telvin Smith. So I combed through the Jaguars cap because, with a team that's over the salary cap, you're going to obviously be looking to move on from bigger salary guys. 4 names kind of stood out to me. I don't know if they'd be interested in moving some of these names, but 4 names stood out. 2 defensive tackles, which just happens to be a position of need for the Cleveland Browns. You have Malik Jackson, next year at $15 million, the year after that at $15.7 million, and the year after that at $13.7 million. You have Marcel Darius, $10.5 million next year, $14.6 the year after that, I think it was 1 or 2 the year after that. So 2 defensive tackles right there. I don't know if they'd be willing to move on from one of them, or either of them, but they're both guys that I would definitely look into, given the fact that we could use a defensive tackle next to Larry. So they're both options for us. Telvin Smith, as you mentioned, in your question, $12.5 million this year, $12.8 the year after that, $13 the year after that. So he's a guy, that's going to pop up if they're looking to save money. And then a little under the radar guy, DJ Hayden, cornerback. He's kind of in a depth role with them right now behind. I don't know how much he plays. I think he plays in their nickel. Base when they run that out there too. But I mean, you have Jalen Ramsey in front of him. You have AJ Boye in front of him. So from a money standpoint, Hayden's scheduled to make $7.4 million next year and $7.6 million the year after that. So those would be the 4 guys on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the ball really didn't have too much unless they're looking to move one of their offensive linemen. But the Browns already have a ton of money tied up in the offensive line. So I would say if they're looking to move anybody, it would probably be one of those 4 players. Music for us. All right.
He's good.
Oh, geez. All right.
That's all I was thinking the whole time was that scene in Billy Madison. I was really hoping that it wouldn't have an ad in the middle of it.
Oh, man. All right. And our last...
I know you were watching me like, what is he doing?
I was wondering what you were doing.
Getting something ready to go here.
All right. Our final subscriber question comes from Always Lose, who has a pretty cool throwback Andre Rison jersey as his Abby.
Oh, man. That's up there in the annals of best throwback jersey.
Yeah. I actually ran into somebody at one of the games. It might have been the opener, and he had the Andre Rison jersey on, and I took a picture of it and posted it on Twitter. Oh, no, it was at training camp. I took a picture of the Andre Rison jersey and posted it on Twitter. It was pretty cool. All right, his question. Larry O. Gun Joe B. looked great in limited time last year, and the fan base seems to still consider him to be a great DT. On the other hand, PFF rates him very poorly, and I get the sense he has been less disruptive this year, even with far more snaps. What's your opinion of his play? Should we feel confident he is a cornerstone of the team's future? Is he a Pro Bowl caliber player? Is he just a guy? What's fact and what's fiction here? So I want to start with something about Mr. O-Gun Joe B. I will say this. He's playing way too many damn snaps this year. Larry O has had plenty of disruptive snaps, but I think the thing about him is he's a bigger guy in the middle. Bigger guys with more snaps tend to lose explosion over the course of the game. So you have a guy who is disruptive, can get to the quarterback, can blow up the center of an offensive line, and you're running him out there, and Greg Williams is another thing that drives me crazy about Williams, is out there running him out 70% of the snaps earlier in the season. Him and Garrett were playing a ridiculously high amount of snaps, despite the fact that you had, you made all these additions to your defensive line, but weren't rotating any of them in to try to give your premier guys some time off. So I really think that the number of snaps that Greg Williams has played Larry this year have really negatively impacted the amount of disruptive plays. With that said, my opinion of his play is Larry O has the ability to be a very, very good football player. I think that he doesn't need to be a Pro Bowl player to be a good player. Like I don't like to use Pro Bowl as a measure of a player's excuse me, a measure of a player's success on the football field. Pro Bowl voting is done by the fans. Fans don't pay attention to interior linemen unless they're Aaron Donald. Like, let's be honest, unless you're Aaron Donald or you are, I can't even think of like some of the greater interior linemen off the top of my head right now in the league. But unless you're Aaron Donald, who's just ripping apart, throwing guys down by one arm and registering 15 sacks on the year already, like you're not going to really notice. The common fan, the person that's out there Pro Bowl voting over and over and over again, retweeting on Twitter, isn't really going to notice a guy like Larry Ogunjobi. So, opinion of his play. I think that with more snaps, his disruption level comes down. I think that there's a happy medium for him. I don't know exactly what that percentage of snaps is, but I think there's a happy medium for Larry in terms of how much he can play over the course of the game that can cause disruption in the middle of the line. With that said, I think that having a subpar defensive tackle on the other side of him is really negatively impacting him as well. And we'll talk about that in the offseason and the draft options and the free agency options. But I think that should be one of the Browns' top 3 priorities.
Absolutely.
Is adding interior line. And then one other thing I want to say, too, is that, yes, he can be a cornerstone of this team's future. But again, remember what I said earlier about your Antonio Callaways of the world and your mid-round undrafted pick guys and all of that. Like, we expect as fans, when a guy's playing well, they should just play well every single time they play. And they should be Pro Bowlers and they should be all pros. We should have all pros all over the place. And the fact of the matter is that some guys are just good players. They don't have to be great players. They may never be elite players. Not every football team runs out 8, 9, 10 elite players. Most football teams have a roster of above average to good guys and maybe a couple of elite guys sprinkled in there. I think that the best thing that the Browns can do for Larry O moving forward is to find a happy medium for him in snaps and add somebody next to him on the interior of the line that can force the team to stop doubling him. Because I think he gets a lot of double teams on the interior of the line when he gets there.
So is Larry Ogunjobi one of the guys who's going to be a cornerstone of the Browns defense? I guess that depends on how you define cornerstone. I think if you're building this Browns defense for the future, your cornerstones right now are Denzel Ward and Joe Schobert and Myles Garrett. Those are the 3 guys that you're building around that are anchoring each of those positions. Your guy in the secondary is Denzel. The guy in the linebacking core is Joe Schobert, and the guy in the line is Myles Garrett.
Wait, who is it in the linebacker core?
It's Schobert.
Oh, just checking.
Hey, never say that I won't reevaluate when new information is given to me. I am not George Bush, a guy who believes on Thursday what I believed on Tuesday, and whatever happens on Wednesday is irrelevant. But he is also not just a guy. He is not just a guy. Jamie Meter is just a guy in this league. The guy next to him on the line is just a guy in the league. The heart of a lemming is just a guy in the league right now. Ogunjobi is an above average defensive tackle. He's not elite. He's not great, but he is above average at defensive tackle. He's going to start on most teams in the league. And on the couple of teams that he's not a starter, he's going to be a primary heavy rotation depth interior lineman. He's going to be in the league. He's going to have a career. That's probably going to be as a starter. I agree with a lot of what you said, Bob, that playing him next to a subpar defensive tackle is probably hurting him. And the Browns can do some things to help support him. And look, the bigger thing here is you're the Cleveland Browns. And you haven't won very many games in a long time, and you haven't had the luxury of saying, I have an above average person at this position a lot of the time. Ogunjobi is a guy that you throw on this roster. He's not going anywhere. And when the Browns address needs next year, his spot is not one that they're addressing. If the Browns have a board on the wall and they say, these guys are part of the plan and these guys are in place and we're going to fill in this team around them, Ogunjobi's starting defensive tackle spot is one of those things that goes up on the board as this spot is filled. And there's not many spots there that go up on the board like that. Ward at corner is up on the board. Garrett is up on the board. Agba on the other end is probably up on the board, and that might be debatable. Schobert is up on the board. Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, and Landry. And aside from that, and probably Bitonio. Aside from that, I don't know whose spot is guaranteed up on the board where they're not saying if we have a chance to improve here. Like, Demarius Randall's playing great, but I don't know if his spot's up on the board. You know, on that hypothetical board. I mean, but I think Ogunjobi's one of those guys that they say, we are good enough here at this spot that we don't need to go improve it. And I think that's what's important in answering that question. He's a guy that they can count on to play at a high level, and when this team is good enough to be a playoff team, he's going to be on that roster.
Great questions tonight. I know we only had 2 of them, but I put up the thread a little bit later in the day. But no, those were really great questions from our subscribers. And I think we're about done. Sorry, everybody out there that we could not get Lane tonight. I know earlier we talked about having him on. For those of you who are OBR followers, you know everything that goes on with Lane outside of the football world. And we obviously wish him the best and hope everything, is going well tonight. We will definitely try to get him on for next week's episode. And so he can drive some straight talk home for you and give you all the good rants. And we'll try and keep them all on air this time instead of every single time we stop recording and then Lane goes on the most amazing 10-minute rant and none of you get to hear it but Scott and I. So
never going to happen. The show off the show, whatever show you're doing, the show off the show is always the better show.
We just need him in studio and then there's no...
Even I have never been on any radio show, whether it's the science fiction show I do or whether it's the old shows at No Static Radio, whether it's the wrestling podcast, whatever it is, I've never done a radio show, an audio program where the show off the mic is better than the show on the mic. Never. And I think you can attest to that.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, that'll do it for us. Everybody, thank you again for sticking through it to the end and listening to us talk Browns, talk drunken stories, talk Browns Panthers, and answer your OBR subscriber questions. Do want to thank you all for listening as always. Make sure you're out there rating us, subscribing on wherever podcasts are found. Hit us up on the Twitter. Let us know how we're doing. Unless you're tweeting me to tell me I can't pronounce participation because I figured it out after an hour.
Just keep downloading, because what I have learned recently is that when you get over 1,000 downloads of your podcast, you have credibility. People care about you. And we have been over 1,000 downloads, so thank you for that and keep up at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, we appreciate you. Until next time, go Browns.